So my colleague panelists will be leading us in a discussion that will look at how we can strengthen organizations, especially the smaller ones that are of crucial importance for enabling locally led interventions. We will be looking at how, just as small organizations are like small businesses, the backbone of a community, and the ones that are the ones that really enable a community to thrive, that is how nonprofits are also oriented towards the immediate needs of a given community. They know what is working in a community, have a incredible insight as to the path going forward and what needs to be done. And looking at our very challenging current international aid system, where we have systemic imbalances and inequity, it is important to ensure that small organizations in the Global South have the technology and the resources that they need to respond and be resilient, and to have the voice to participate in this space. So this is a critical issue. The threat of a pandemic-induced ending for small organizations is even more severe. So we want to look at what are some of the new innovations organizations are looking at, what is emerging, how are long-standing ones helping others to become stronger, and what are the partnerships that are working towards all of this.
Actually, many operational and organizational models in all sectors, from public to private, have proved to be ineffective and inadequate to address the many challenges generated by the pandemic. And at the same time, new ways are being sought to reconfigure activities, services, products, especially with the help of digital, no longer seen as an option, but as a strategic solution. In terms of technology, the most concrete needs were mainly at the level of access to hardware and tools for remote working. Secondly, people asked for support at the level of digital skills, but not only to use certain tools, but to rethink through the technology, through those tools, the delivery of their services. So changing the delivery of services, changing a whole structure of the organization. That's why the digital is so challenging at all levels, because it involves people, processes, technologies, and all together.
Because again, in terms of us trying to move them very fast, again, we start with the most basic tools. Because they're used to desktops and they're working from home, we now started providing laptops. And even as we continued with that process, now we started the process of digital upskilling, either through the courses that we've offered under TechSoup, the LMS platform, and we're able to even repurpose some of the courses that we had to address specific issues within COVID.
Because we are working with partners, and we are enabled. This is enabled by the kind of partnerships that we have with organizations like VMware and Okta. Now that we have set the context and looked at how nonprofit organizations have been affected and how they have responded, I'd like to find out more, and I believe all of us would, how VMware and Okta are supporting TechSoup's international response.
That TechSoup gives us a vehicle to do that. You know, you mentioned 1.3 million nonprofits in the TechSoup ecosystem around the world. There's no other way to reach those organizations for a company like ours. And so the first thing I'll say is just that there's a tremendous value in partnering with organizations like TechSoup from a company perspective, because we get so much leverage. We get to have a way and a path to connect in to supporting organizations on the front lines in places like Kenya and places like Italy, where we may not even have operations. For many years now, the sort of North Star focus of our social impact and philanthropy efforts has been around nonprofit digital transformation, and how do we not just help the organizations that use our products, but actually help more organizations around the world undergo this transformation that we all know needs to happen. And as we dug into that over the years, we've recognized that it's really hard for nonprofits to fund tech. There's a real need for more folks in the sector to have the right skills, but more importantly, the executive leadership of nonprofits and the boards of nonprofits need to understand how technology can drive mission. And so there's a huge need for investment here. And it's not something, quite frankly, that a lot of funders have been interested in doing.
These are the two sides of the same coin around how are you building, your organizational resilience. And so one of those is really understanding and being able to identify the need that your organization has. And then the other is around, the question of the day is how do you fund it? And so support for this tool came out of a collaboration across companies. So VMware, Okta, Adobe, Cisco, and Box. And TechSoup's tool really helps a nonprofit identify where are you, where do you need to go, and what are those next steps in an organization's digital journey.
We should not lose perspective that these changes are painless. They're very painful to most organizations, either because of education levels, because of poverty, because of basic things like even broadband connectivity. So even as you are looking at these courses, and we've been fortunate enough to have Microsoft, again, coming to partner with TechSoup in terms of providing some digital skills courses, but that still is not enough. Because the first things that organizations look at to make sure that their lights are on would be small things like how do they, tell their story? How are they able to start fundraising, especially raising resources locally amongst their own constituents? So some of these courses, as I said initially, we had to repurpose them fairly quick so that you almost address both verticals. As you address tech, they can also use those kinds of resources also to almost boost their organizational development workflows.
If you're a company or funder trying to reach small nonprofits, in particular where you don't operate, I think the biggest challenge is proximity. We all agree that we want solutions to come from local leaders, that we want power to and agency to come from local communities. It's really hard to build those relationships when you're very far away and you don't have those paths built. So again, I go back to the approach that Okta is taking in large part with our philanthropy is to work through trusted intermediaries, through trusted networks, through trusted ecosystems.
And this year in particular, I really have appreciated the inherent tension between scale and also sort of customization and meeting those unique needs, right? And I think that will always be a natural tension. And so sort of advice that I have to other companies that are thinking about sort of serving smaller organizations is to really have that flexible framework that allows you to have those guideposts, but also really holds true to listening and understanding and not making assumptions that it's all sort of that one size fits all.